St. Dominic himself died in 1221, and within a few years, Dominicans had come over to England. They came here before 1240 and then stayed here till 1538, when the Reformation rearrangements drove them out of Newcastle. In the 1860s, a priest at St. Andrew's, Worsick Street, decided to become a Dominican, and so this gave a kind of toehold in the city again to the Dominicans. They were asked to look after the parish that looked towards Byker. They found an old farmhouse, Red Barns, and moved into that and built the priory in the 1860s. And the church started being built with a lot of labouring help from local parishioners. There were a lot of Irish immigrant parishioners at that time, and the church was completed in 1873. The architects were Dunn and Hanson. So from then on, it's been mainly simply a parish, a Catholic parish in this area of Newcastle.
So when you enter this church, you're immediately aware of the contrast between the noise outside the busy city road and the size and the space and the calmness and stillness in this church. Our eyes are drawn to the stained glass windows that reflect the light coming in, tell the story of our faith, of Dominicans, and of the history of this parish. Some of the windows reflect the story of this community. There's a window over here that is dedicated to one of the first Dominican priests in the parish. There's a window over there that is dedicated to a soldier who lost his life in the First World War from this parish, and another window that is dedicated to an Irish immigrant, Sir John Fitzgerald. He was knighted, was the Lord Mayor of Newcastle, and opened some of the finest pubs in this city.
Well, I was very interested when I came to St. Dominics to see that there were stained glass windows by Harry Clark. He was an Irish stained glass artist. Harry Clark's work is in churches across Europe as well as around Ireland, and it's here as well. The Dominicans didn't just use local stained glass artists like Wales and Reed Milliken, they also used Herdman of Birmingham for many of the first windows that were put into the church. One of the other interesting things about St. Dominics is the attention to music here in recent years, particularly because of Father Dominic and the Latin choir and the African choir as well, and the new organist. I'm a member of the Newcastle Bach Choir, and I find that music is a wonderful way of expressing the immaterial and the invisible that often we can't communicate very well in conversation. But it's something that brings us together, brings us closer to each other, brings us closer to God as well. So the musical side of things at St. Dominics is also very attractive.
The organ here was built by Henry Willis in 1883. The organ hasn't been used for quite some time. It's come to a point where it needs restoration. All of the leather in the organ is starting to perish. The trackers, which are the connections between the keys and the soundboards, are becoming brittle. Pipes start collapsing over time, so all of that needs addressing. The Willis organ is a very unusual example in the fact that the organ reform movement, which came about in the 1950s, saw the style of organs change drastically. Many Victorian organs lost their character altogether and became a mishmash of something trying to be an English organ, a French organ and a German organ all in one. The organ here at St. Dominics managed to miss that whole movement and remains as Willis built it. So the true Victorian and Edwardian sort of sound that you would expect is still here. So there's a bit of brightness from the organ which you don't find with other organs from this time. And that's why it's so vital that we capture and preserve the uniqueness of this instrument for generations to come.
Elliott Smith Company was founded in 2012 after my first work, Missa, premiered at Westminster Cathedral during my studies at the London Contemporary Dance School. come from a Catholic background. My faith has always been close to me, but I believe in life it's a personal choice. And I've always wanted to perform in these sacred spaces because I think they're a theatre in their own unique way. And St Dominics itself has been quite special to ESC because we are allowed to perform here at least once a month. It's part of an ongoing collaboration between St Dominics and ESC. We feel at home when we come to spaces like this.
The paintings symbolise different meanings. It shows the Christian tradition and it's just very amazing looking at them.
This painting is by a Spanish artist called Dastis. We are still trying to find out more about it. What we believe is that the artist that painted this used local people to represent the saints that are actually in the painting. In a way, the church has always engaged significantly with the local community, and this painting shows this. Even though the Irish immigrants of the 19th century are now no longer with us, we have today developing, thriving other communities from all over the world.
This is a painting by Mariah Causeway, and she's a very famous artist at the beginning of the 19th century. Now we think this painting had been commissioned for St Andrew's in Warwick Street when the Dominicans were based there before they came here and built this beautiful church.
To be asked to respond to a theme of connections and to make a work in a place of spirituality greatly interested me. The community have been very, very warm and very quick on the uptake to participate, and that's been a wonderful experience. So we quickly were able to create something together. This is a great church of very powerful sense of spirituality within it. So the birds have been made with great humour, they've been made with great charity, they've been made with great hope, and we've developed an installation which brings light into the internal space of that small room. So we're working with a lot of the senses of spirituality. I do think there are situations very positively where people are very altered and changed by what they've seen, whether it's an artwork, a poem, music, all of these things in the wider kind of arts scene, I think could be said to be quite close to spirituality actually.
An artist came to work at this church and he asked a couple of children to make these birds out of different materials for a display in the church.
I like doing it because I really like art and it's really fun.
I thought that every different bird was unique and special, that had something special about it.
Everybody who comes to St Dominics, whether they've been parishioners for years or whether they're visitors for the first time, they say this church is a glory, and so it is, but actually it's a very fragile glory because we've got a painting of the crucifixion which is coming out of its frame. We've got a very early example of community art in the painting by Dastis at the founding of our church, because the faces of many of the people in that painting, done at the end of the 19th century, are the faces of parishioners, and yet that painting is fast decaying. There's our beautiful stained glass windows which colour the light, and yet they're falling out. So we want this church to be a church for everybody, but for that to happen, we need funding and we need it soon. So we thank everybody for their generosity.